Hey there, friends. I'm Andrea, and this is Spitefully Yours, the podcast where we survive, heal, and thrive out of spite. So grab your coffee, your tea, whatever chaos beverage you're into these days, and pull up a seat. There's a photo of me in the NICU where a Scotch tape dispenser is sitting beside my head. And the tape dispenser is bigger. Every time I look at it, I think, damn, I don't look like a baby in this picture. I look like a fucking Tic Tac. Nobody really expected me to make it, not the doctors or nurses. The charts certainly didn't have a good prognosis written in them. But my parents did. And apparently, somewhere in my half-assembled body, I did too. I was born at 25 weeks gestation. Not just a little early, but ma'am, that baby is not done cooking yet. My skin was translucent, my lungs were underprepared and underdeveloped, and my entire existence rode on machines that beeped loudly enough to scare the adults. Doctors told my parents, don't bond with her, don't get attached, she probably won't survive, just go home and forget this ever happened and try again later. And my parents looked at those doctors and said, fuck you. That's our daughter. And we are staying by her side no matter what. That stubbornness and that defiance that you will come to know me for and that people in my life know me as having, they're all inherited. Survival through spite is my love language. I spent months in that NICU, and when it was finally time to go home, I was still a few ounces under the required discharge weight, which was a technicality, but an important one. After all, rules have to be followed, right? Well, there was a nurse there, and she was an amazing person that had been there with my parents from the very beginning. She knew my story. She knew I was a fighter. She knew how hard I had tried to stay alive. And my parents knew that if anyone would understand, it was her. She was an angel in scrubs who had no patience for bullshit. So during my weight register that morning, she put me on the scale, looked around, and as my parents saw, she took her thumb and gently placed it on the scale with me, bumping my weight up just a few ounces, just so I could go home. That's how I got discharged, a thumb. One tiny moment of rebellion. One, not today. One, I get it. One moment where someone in the medical field said, fuck this, there's got to be a different way. I didn't know how foreshadowing that moment would be. And because nothing fit me, my parents had to go to the store, buy a doll in about the same weight range that I was in size range, dress me in those doll clothes, and that's how they brought me home. Honestly, it explains so much about who I became as an adult. I came into this world like, I will cause problems, and you will love me anyway. And I mean, that tracks. But once I was home, my parents knew there was something off about me. Now, they had been told that I might not be a normal kid. They had been told that I would probably be a vegetable. I wouldn't walk. I wouldn't talk. Maybe that I would even in the medical terminology of the day, that I would be possibly retarded and have extreme mental and physical deficits. What they were not told is that I would be a handful. And that manifested in how I cried. I didn't cry like a normal baby. My parents said I sounded like a baby kitten calling for its mother, like soft, a little scary, a little unsettling, enough to make you question whether your house was inhabited by a banshee or a ghost, maybe. They would take turns watching me breathe at night because they were afraid I'd stop. And the colic hit. Now, if you've never heard an infant with colic, imagine a fire alarm that hates you specifically. My parents tried everything. Bouncing, pacing, they fed me, singing, driving me around at 3 a.m., like they were trying to get me into a nightclub. Nothing worked. Until one day, my aunt's husband said, "Let me try something." And he gently placed me on the floor and he put a 50-cent piece on my belly. Just casually put it there like he was, just in a thermostat. And after a few moments of waiting patiently, I let go of the biggest, longest fart of my life at that point. And the crying was gone. Of course, money solved my problems, right? That is the most consistent theme of my life. But it didn't solve it completely. You see, I don't know if it was the formula back then. I don't know if it was my digestion. I couldn't tolerate my mom's milk. So I was on formula. And the formulas back in 1980 were like not as advanced as they are now. They basically just kind of kept you alive. But I couldn't tolerate them very well. So I was kind of behind in development. Additionally to how far behind I was as a preemie in general. So the crying continued, and it manifested as more colic. And one night, after hours and hours and hours of screaming, my dad, who was the gentlest, kindest person I know, snapped. He picked up my crystal baby bottle he had been using to feed me with, and he threw it against the wall, and it shattered. And my mom told me that story, and he told me too, like, not to shame him, but to show me the reality of fear as a parent. Sometimes you are so scared and exhausted and feeling so helpless that you just snap. My dad loved me fiercely, but loving a baby who might die at any moment and who also won't shut the hell up is its own form of trauma. Something breaks. Maybe it's you, maybe it's a bottle, maybe it's your composure, maybe it's the illusion you're in control, whatever. As an adult navigating chronic illness and medical trauma of my own, I get it. I really get it, because that story is so familiar. So how did my parents get through this? How did I get through this? How did we all survive it? Our upstairs neighbor, Alma. Alma lived upstairs with her husband, Charlie, and they were wonderful people. She would bake my mom a strawberry shortcake every day during her pregnancy. The moment my dad left for work, she would take her broom, bang it on the floor, which was her signal for the coffee's ready, come on up. And she and my mom would sit there. My mom had a best friend in Alma. Alma was like that auntie or grandmother that you just love unconditionally, who gets you. Alma and Charlie had also been kept awake every night with my crying too. And Alma, who had raised her own family by this point, knew exactly what she had to do. She got up one morning before dawn and she walked into the mountains we know and love here in Appalachia, when the dew was still on the grass, and she picked fresh catnip, brought it home, brewed the tea, and fed me a bottle of catnip tea. And the crying immediately stopped, just like that. No drama, no big reveal, just silence. My parents were dumbfounded. No doctor they had taken me to was able to crack the code, but Alma knew. Alma was a cool lady. She was magic in motion. She babysat me. She loved me. She loved my parents. She left a permanent mark on our family. Because Alma knew that sometimes people are medicine long before medicine is medicine, and sometimes you have to think outside the box to solve complex problems. Now, here's where it all ties together with the parallels to my adult medical journey. Because the story of my birth isn't just sentimental background noise. It's not just to tell you who I am. It's a blueprint for everything that happened later. So, doctors telling me that nothing's wrong, having symptoms no one can explain, labs that don't add up, pain that's dismissed, answers that take years. You probably are familiar with this maybe in your own journey or the journey of someone you love. And then there's me, stubborn, exhausted, and determined, just like my parents, insisting that I know my body and something isn't right. That same instinct that kept me alive as a preemie is the instinct that dragged me through medical gaslighting, misdiagnosis, and uncertainty until I finally reached and found real answers in real caring providers. My birth wasn't just a dramatic origin story for my villainhood. It was the universe handing me my survival manual. And apparently the instructions read, and I quote, "Be stubborn, be inconvenient, be louder than the doubt, and stay alive out of spite." Now, in part of telling my own medical journey and my own story, I want to give you tips in documenting your own journey so that you can take this to your providers, so that you can hook them into convincing them to care. So I want to share with you the following. Write this down. Your medical story doesn't start when you get sick. It does not start with the moment you get sick. No. In fact, it starts when you're born. It starts the first time your body takes its first breath, and it goes from there. Every story from your childhood, every character quirk, every weird thing that your body does that may or may not make sense, write those down. Honor those experiences. Honor that story. They are part of your diagnostic journey. They're part of your legacy, and they matter. Write them down. In the background is Annie. She's my sweet little dog, and I'll tell you how she came into my life in another episode. But if this episode has stirred something in you, a memory, a pattern, a feeling, I hope you come back each week to investigate it and to add to it. Not because I need numbers or sponsors or any of that shit, but because stories like yours and mine are never meant to be carried alone. And soon, I'll be releasing a special tool that I'm building out of pure spite and love called the Spiteful Playbook. It's a guide to help you map your symptoms, organize your medical life, and tell your story, and advocate for yourself with clarity and confidence, all for free. It's not a product, it's a lifeline, and it's one I wish someone had handed me years ago, and it's something that I've been developing for years because I want it to save you time and years off your diagnostic journey. I want you to have the tools that I didn't have. So thanks for being here. If you want more, visit aliveoutofspite.com. You can follow the podcast, subscribe on all major channels and platforms, sign up for the newsletter. I promise I won't send you a bunch of shit that doesn't matter. I'll just send you anything that's relevant to potentially making your journey a little bit easier. So stay alive. It pisses people off. See you next time, my friends. Until then, I remain always spitefully yours.